What is up, everybody? Welcome back. So today I just want to do a quick update on my discipline priest because I did do a guide quite a while ago at this point, and I have made some changes and just want to keep you guys up to date to what I'm doing because things I have kind of adapted to certain things, and things have changed, tuning and whatnot. So I'm gonna try to make this a quick video, just go over my current build, the talents I'm playing, and gear, and a quick overview of my burst rotations and stuff, and then maybe some quick tips. So really quick, just to go over the talents. So right now I have a 2s and a 3 spec. 3 spec I still switch around quite a bit. I will let you know the clash out of the tree I pretty much don't change. This is just what I stick with. When it comes to the spec tree, there are a few things. So let me just show you first off the cookie cutter build that you could play is probably more so this. Just so you're aware, like if you want to play the normal shit, this is what people play. I think you would probably drop these two here, right? Something like that. This is typically what you play for playing normal builds, so you can always switch these things up playing Harsh Discipline, especially Harsh Discipline is not bad now with the Blaze of Light, but I like to do a little more damage, right? So I did opt to go for additional Abyssal Reverie for the extra healing, shadow healing, and expiation. I know people say, why don't you play Harsh Discipline? I don't get, like, a lot of times you don't get the opportunity to get the cast off for it. And when it comes to which one is better offensively, it's 100% expiation, because a lot of times, like, literally all you can do is just get a clutch death in there, or maybe like mind blast into death. And if you are playing, since I am playing Abyssal Reverie, I do get that additional 20% atonement healing, so it actually does a nice chunk of healing. But I mean, I've been kind of switching things around. Like, this is something I was experimenting with. I was playing Bright Pupil here for the shorter radiance, but since Penance was buffed, I was like, oh, maybe we'll try a little bit stronger Penance, because Penance damage breakdown is actually pretty decent now. But this is kind of up to you, right? This is what I've been playing. You don't need to play Twilight Equilibrium. You can kind of drop 2 of these here and go back into this. This is what a lot of people typically do. You can drop that point, go into there. It is kind of up to you what you feel like you do. With Twilight Equilibrium, the reason I played this is just simply when you're playing in 3s, it's giving you 15% bonus damage on. So if I penance this target and then I penance him, so these dots now are doing 4k, right? If instead I Mind Blast and then Purge the Wicked and then spread it, instead of 4,100, now it's doing 4,700 each, and those add up. Especially if you can spread it over multiple targets and whatnot like that, it does a lot of damage and a lot of atonement healing. Get some chunky atonement healing. I try to do my best to, utilize this all the time, but there's cases where I don't go out of my way. The biggest thing I do it for is literally, like I said, like I'll do a Schism into a Pennant, into a Purge the Wicked, into a spread. It's usually how I start the games off. And then just make sure before you Purge the Wicked, every time you're just throwing in a Shadow School, and even if that is just death into Purge the Wicked, just something to trigger that Shadow spell so that your next Purge the Wicked is 15% stronger. It does add up over the course of the game, I promise you on that. And then when it comes to PvP talents, this typically I'm going to be running Phase Shift and Ultimate Radiance. There are cases if I feel like I don't need Phase Shift, especially in Solo Shuffle, Dark Arc becomes very good. And just seeing when your teammates burst and then popping this with them, really useful in Solo Shuffle. Promise you that. But make sure it is a class that you don't, or a comp that you don't need Phase Shift, something that's not going to come at you and CC you. Catharsis is occasionally useful versus like Affliction Locks and Shadow Priests and Boomies if you do find yourself not needing Phase Shift there. But and then alternately, if you do verse mages, make sure that you do have both, like especially rogue mage. If it's just a mage, usually I'll probably run like Thought Steal. If it's a rogue mage, or I mean, I'll just say rogue mage in general, Phase Shift and Thought Steal to play both of those. Make sure you're stealing the polys and using those polys that you steal. It can be really impactful into the game. Otherwise, I am pretty much running. This is what I'm running most of the time, and I'm always in Inner Shadow. If I do find myself becoming a mana game, I will swap to Inner Light though. Alright, so that's my 3 spec. 2 spec, not too different. When it comes to the talents here, I did opt to change to Double Death versus having both of these. If I do need MD, I swap to MD. If I don't need MD, I move it back to Move with Grace. Simple as that. Double Death can come really in handy. A little trick I use with Double Death, by the way, is if something like, let's say you're doing your burst damage or whatever into it, if he's about to hit into, like, let's say he's at like, because death you have to be under 20%, right? If they're at 25% or maybe 30, kind of depends on how much damage is coming in from your teammates as well. Throwing in a death, because if you death a target and at the end of the death they are below 20% health, you can use the second death, if that makes sense. So like you can pre-death sometimes in hopes that that death will land them into death range and you get the second death. Just another way to get a little bit of instant damage, because you are getting the expiation procs usually. And you know, regardless, like for example, if I have a Shadow Covenant up and Schism going, if I just throw a regular death, nothing else, it still does 35k plus. Oh, that's not a crap. That wasn't a PvP dummy. But it still does quite a bit of damage. So like you can still knock somebody into that death range from that as well. So it is useful in that regard. When it comes to the spec tree, something I've been kind of opting for is I play the traditional build. The traditional build would probably more so something like this. If you did want to play Radiance, usually people would drop Shadow Covenant or maybe drop Abyssal Reverie and go into Radiance. I don't prefer to play Radiance. I honestly don't recommend playing Radiance in 2s. I really don't think you need it. Flash Heal is more... If you are keeping up your dots with Darkest Come Lights, Flash Shield will do more single target, and yeah, you really shouldn't need it because you're gonna like gimp kind of handicap yourself in the way that you're gonna want to cater to pressing Radiance. Whether if you don't have Radiance, you're like, oh well, I need to do damage then, and the Atonement Healing is more. This is something that I've been trying to get used to recently, is especially with all the penance buffs and playing Shadow Covenant, all the penance talents. A lot of times when your targets get low, I'm trying to change my mindset of like shield, spamming flash shield, spamming whatever this, radiance, all that kind of shit, to do my burst damage. My burst damage will heal an incredible amount of healing, with especially running Abyssal Reverie, double Abyssal Reverie with Shadow Covenant. It does so much healing. So try that out. You know, make sure you keep that in your mind. I do not play Extended Rapture because I'm not playing Mastery or Aegis of Wrath. Okay, so just because of that reason, Rapture is pointless. It's so bad. Like I'll use Rapture, it's just I'm just trying to kite away, and I'll just use it for the speed boost and to keep up the atonements, and it's a little bit of shielding. But when you get into dampening, these shields are embarrassing how bad they are. So that's that. And then anything else to note on this build? No. And then since I don't play Radiance, I don't need that, so I typically play Dark Arc, Phase Shift, and Inner Shadow. If I don't need Phase Shift, I go to Catharsis. If it is something that's going to go me, especially in 2v2, where a lot of times if you're playing melee healer and you're versing a melee healer, odds are they're going to go you. Play Catharsis. I know there's cases where you can get Phase Shifts off, like, oh, you're versing a Red Paladin. But if the Red Paladin's training you, it's really going to be hard to time those Hodges. So it is better off just running Catharsis. Catharsis does an incredible amount of damage and an incredible amount of atonement healing. So keep that in mind. And the same thing in 2 is Thought Steal and Phase Shift for rogue mages or just mages in general. Definitely run Thought Steal. All right. Okay, and then the last thing, and then actually let's go over to gear really quick. So my gear right now, I have 2 different sets. I have a haste set and a mastery set. In 2s, I run full haste. 3s are in Soul Shovel full mastery. Simple as that. So I'm pretty much just running haste all around. I do for my embellishments. I'm gonna try to. I've just been experimenting with this. My embellishment right now, Infurious mandatory. Always run this. If you don't have the weak ore for this, just let me know if you'd like it. It just triggers every time you have metal, it's called, which is the 510 stat. And when this falls off, you have a 20-second downtime, DR time, and then you got to get it up. So anytime this is not or like off DR, I guess, make sure you're constantly purging and getting good uptime on this, because there's something before I got this weak ore I didn't realize how much downtime I was having on this. So like the second this comes off, I'm just, all you have to do is throw a purge in. So just purge, or if you have a CC, great, you can go for a CC, but just throwing in a purge is enough, right? And then make sure you get it again, because 510 is a lot. Yeah. And the other embellishment, I'm running the Alarid right now. Honestly, it's just because I had it. I think ideally, I'll probably in 2s, I think either going for a precog, your choices are either precog. I might experiment with Shadow Flame, but I don't think one Shadow Flame, rolling Shadow Flame is going to be enough to make a difference. I'm going to experiment with it anyway, because we'll have an extra spark, so. Or you can run the Mastery one. But typically, I'm not going to, I feel like I'm not full health a lot in 2s, because I'm just doing damage all the time. And Disc Priest in general typically isn't full health in 2s, because you're always getting hit by something. Because you're always going for fears and stuff like that, so I don't know if it's going to get good use. So right now I'm running the Lariat, which is not that great. It really isn't. Precog is also, very good, but I just felt like in 2s precog, if I get kicked, I just cast the other skull, and it's not a big deal. So I'm just experimenting at the moment. But regardless, verse haste right now. Okay, so I'm running verse haste, verse haste, verse, and then for the tier set, I'm running 2 set, shoulders and gloves. No point in running the 4 set. I don't play Radiance. Haste verse all around. Haste first, haste first, haste first, haste first crafted ring, haste first regular ring, haste first scale warden, the bloody token one. Yep, and then just all around. The only piece that's not haste is this. And my gems, I have a mixture of master. If this was a truly 2 set, I would just run verse haste all around. But this is a set that some of these pieces I do use in my mastery set, so that's why I have mastery gems in, like the bracers and the helm. I do use in my other set, so that's why in this piece as well. That's why they have that. But if I could, I would just run for verse haste around. When it comes to threes, the threes build, it's the same thing, just running mastery though, right? So verse mastery, I do prioritize verse over mastery though, which is different than most people probably do. But just because of how I play, I do play offensive. It does better. I feel like I get a better benefit from verse, prioritizing verse over mastery. It's not like I'm neglecting mastery whatsoever outside of that, but yeah, just having a little more mastery. You can go even harder on mastery. My right now my haste is at 11%. You can go, or in PvP it's at 13. These are my stats in PvP. You can go harder on the mastery, which I probably will eventually with these crafts once we get enough sparks down the line. Being able to craft especially a verse haste, a verse mastery chest piece, and maybe a verse. I might experiment with full mastery just to see how it goes. Maybe for end of the season solo shuffle push, because I feel like you just need so much throughput healing. So I think in an ideal world, everything is verse mastery, and you don't have any haste at all, which feels kind of terrible. But in solo shuffle, I think that might be the move, just because I think in 3 you can get away with a little bit more haste, but solo shuffle you probably just need as much throughput healing as humanly possible. But yeah, going around the line, just full verse mastery, double verse mastery rings. Yep. And then I'm playing precog in 3s because the lariat doesn't really. I'm not running the lariat because I need mastery anyway. So yeah, that's a bit on the terms of the gearing. The last thing I just want to go over with you guys was just my damage rotation, especially in 2s, because a lot of people have been watching me play 2v2, and I'm doing the most massive, the biggest penance that I've gotten so far was 282k in 1 penance. So just to really quick show you guys what that does entail. So typically in 2v2, I do start off the game with going with a Mind Blast into Purge of the Wicked, and then I'll spread it. Just kind of like how I mentioned before, I do this in 3s as well, just to get an empowered Purge of the Wicked and get it going. After that, make sure I'm solacing and just trying to get my first Harsh Discipline as fast as possible. With this much haste, it's very easy. Yeah, and once I have my first Harsh Discipline, that's when I'm going to do my big damage go. Okay, there's a lot of steps to this especially if you are running Dark Arc. So basically here, I'm going to shield myself. Let me get my dot back up here first. Okay, I'm going to PI, Shadow Covenant, Dark Arc, Shadow Fiend. I do Shadow Fiend first. Schism into Purge of the Wicked. So now my next thing is Shadow, and then big penance. So these penances are pretty massive. I didn't really get any crits or any crazy modifiers on that one, but outside of that is my damage burst on that, and following up after that. So just trying to constantly just get these alternating your spells to trigger Harsh Discipline, or stack Harsh Discipline while utilizing the best you can, utilizing Twilight Equilibrium, swapping the talents out. So again, going for Schism, Purge the Wicked into Big Penance again. And then usually after the penance, I'll throw in a Solace just to go to Holy School, then back to Mind Blast. You can throw in a Mind Games. Ideally, if you are getting your timing right, you are going to get 2 Dark Reprimands every single Shadow Covenant if you are able to free cast it enough. That's what you want to be aiming for. So doing that big planned go, and try to take advantage, especially with any of your big penances, to make sure you're always triggering Twilight Equilibrium before it, okay? So like I was giving you an example with Shadow Covenant, I throw a Schism beforehand, but now my next school is Light, so I want to Purge the Wicked to make it next one Shadow, and then I throw my penance there. That's a penance I was talking about there. That was a 300k penance. So shit like that, when you get the the Insignia proc and the Sophic Devotion proc, everything lines up for you. It does it in apps. I didn't even Dark Arc that. You can do it just a frick ton of damage, man. So that is basically what what it entails. They keep up your atonement, and you will have to heal occasionally. Take advantage of using From Darkness Comes Light. If you are doing well with your dotting, you will see this stacks up quite quickly. Like in 3s, if I have 3 targets going, this stacks up very quickly on your next flash heal. So try to utilize them, the best you can. That's why I'm saying you don't need Radiance. I promise you, you really don't need Radiance, and in 2s. And, you know, just throwing those flash shields when you can, keep up your dots. And when you can dot, try to always Mind Blast beforehand or Schism beforehand, and then swap it out. But I really recommend trying out Haste, man. Regardless of, you know, maybe Mastery, some Mastery might be a little bit better in terms of, like, grand scheme of performance. It is so much fun casting this fast, I gotta say. Like, I'm at 40% Haste all the time. And then when I do my burst goes, like with PI, I'm sitting at 70%, which is pretty dang nice, you know. And you get these absolutely massive hits here, and be able to just do your whole rotation this fast. It's just something else. But that's all I got for you guys. I appreciate you guys watching. Make sure if you do have any questions, let me know in the comments down below, and have a great day. Peace out.